On this week's 2-minute tip, how to properly dispose of plant material to reduce future disease pressure. So these tomatoes behind me here have seen their better days. The humidity is really high here in the middle of the summer. Lots of disease pressure, lots of disease on these tomatoes. Also a lot of insect pressure. These leaf-footed bugs have been doing a number on the tomatoes, sitting on the fruits there and just sucking the sap out of them. So we need to remove these tomatoes because they're done producing. We had a good crop, but it's time to get rid of them. So with crops that are highly susceptible to disease and insect pressure like tomatoes or potatoes or squash, the last thing you want to do is leave those plants in your garden or on top of your garden soil. Because if you do leave them in there, what will happen is those insect eggs and those fungal spores can overwinter in your garden and cause some serious problems in future years. And the issue would just start to compound year over year, and that pressure will get higher and higher. So for these indeterminate tomatoes that are in these cages, what I like to do is take some pruning shears and cut the stem about 10 inches above the soil line. This is going to allow me to pull the cages up out of the soil, lay them down somewhere outside the garden area, and then it gives me enough to grab a hold to pull that root mass out of the soil as well. Now for my determinate tomatoes that I have trellised using the Florida weave technique, I'll just take my knife and I'll cut that string, and then I'll pull the entire plant up out of the ground. So once you've pulled these plants up out of the ground, you want to make sure you dispose of them properly. You certainly don't want to add them to your compost pile because you're just adding insect eggs and fungal spores that can overwinter and cause some serious problems with your compost. So it's a good idea to have a burn pile on your homestead. Add this old plant material to that burn pile, burn it, and that way you'll kill those insect eggs and those fungal spores, and they won't cause any more problems for you. Now if it's a crop like radishes or lettuce or broccoli or kale, I don't have any problem tilling that back into the soil to add some organic matter to the soil. But for these crops that are really susceptible to diseases and insect pressure, we want to get those as far away from the garden as possible. So do yourself a favor and make sure you properly dispose of these diseased crops to keep those issues from compounding year over year in your vegetable garden. Hope you enjoyed this week's 2-minute tip. We'll see you next week.